Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Outer Reaches. Our first player is Zoukka as this Plague Champion. The Plague Champion starts off as a range hero, can become a melee hero with certain upgrades. He can build structures like turrets, mainly turrets. He can also heal with certain abilities. Interesting hero. Zoukka's opponent is Dave, otherwise known as Nerea, playing as this orc warboss, fully kitted out now in the elite mod, has a bionic eye, a truck on his back. He's a tanky melee hero who can disrupt melee units like the heretics that Zoukka is building. Can also charge, get a power claw, get a custom shooter. Pretty good hero. So this is a 1v1 on Outer Reaches. I think it's interesting to see Outer Reaches. One of the things that I think has happened in the Elite mod is that the actual selection of maps that is played now has decreased since retail. Since in retail people were often playing ranked, where the maps were chosen randomly, so people sometimes had to play on maps that they didn't like. Now in the Elite mod, it's all custom games, you can't do ranked, so people just pick the maps, and as a result, there are a lot of maps that just aren't really played anymore. Especially 1v1 has really turned into a lot of Calderis Refinery and Greentooth Gorge. I'm not even sure what other 1v1 maps are played that much anymore, but I mean, obviously, we have a game on Outer Reaches right here, but I haven't been seeing that map that much. Some maps that I really haven't seen that much in Elite are Leviathan Hive. I don't know if I've ever seen a game of Elite played on Legis High Stratum. Alright, so in the game at hand, Zoukka has gone for a very typical build with Chaos. He's gotten double Heretics and a Chaos Space Marine squad. It's just a little surprising that he got his second Heretic out first instead of that second Chaos Space Marine. I don't know that there's necessarily any advantage to switching up the order, but still ultimately getting the same units. Heretics in here, they do get in range of those shooter boys, but actually do not take a model out. So that was surprising. And the Heretics themselves only lose one model, and that was purely from the Doom Blast. So surprisingly few losses there, especially considering we have double shooter boys. Going to be doing a lot of damage. One of the advantages of the shooter boys in this matchup is that they will definitely be able to control the Heretics pretty well. They do have aiming what's that, so Dave will have as many as 2 squads that he can use aiming what's that with. Will definitely be useful, mainly I think against the Heretics to prevent them from getting in range. And then just having those 2 shooter boys, both with big shooters, one also getting the knob, going to be putting out a lot of range DPS, so they'll be very good at focusing down those very squishy Heretics. Although Zoukka did put an aspiring champion on one of his Heretic squads. Now on the other side of things though, one of the things I'd say that's definitely a disadvantage to shooter boys, not just in this matchup, but just in general, is that they really do bleed a lot. Those shooter boy models, they only have 100 health, and they do cost something like 22 or 27 requisition to reinforce. May not seem like that big of a number, but I mean, considering how much they die, they're definitely going to be bleeding a lot. Slugger boys as well generally will bleed a lot, but right now they're at full health. Just some good engagement management by Dave, I think, and not losing any models on these Slugger boys. Manages to get them in without taking any fire, as well as putting them in against Heretics that are already low on health. So Dave came out on top of that engagement, should be able to capitalize with a power bash. And I mean, the combination of the Slugger boys and double shooters, he should be able to take out 2 generators, maybe 3, if not the whole entire power farm. I mean, 1 is already going down, and still Zoukka's still not even quite anywhere near to being able to come back out of here. Starting to move his Chaos Space Marines back up, as well as his Havocs. 2 generators already down, and I think that's going to be another one. So, Orcs, yeah, that's going to be the entire generator farm, just from Zoukka losing 1 engagement. So that is definitely one of the strengths of Orcs, given that the amount of damage they're putting out in Tier 1 with the double shooters and the sluggers. the ability to just wipe an entire generator farm like that, and many of the other races don't quite have that in Tier 1. I mean, certainly any race can bash generators, but usually for certain races, mainly Imperial Guard and Space Marine, you're really investing in a unit that is specifically designed for bashing generators. And by that I'm referring to Flamers, of course. And it's not like the Flamers can't be used for anything else, but it practically is their main purpose to be used for bashing generators. Now... Alright. Ooh, so we do now have a Havoc out on the field. Where is that Havoc? It is opening fire, but ultimately just shooting at units that are in retreat, so it won't be suppressing them, and it's not like it does a whole lot of damage to units on retreat. The Warboss about to walk into this firing arc, and he will be suppressed. That means the Chaos Space Marines can move away. I was going to say they can... Oh, no. Warboss must be in retreat now. Looks like another squad of heretics. This one with grenade launchers went for... was going for... maybe for a cap on this victory point, but got scared off by some Storm Boys. So, Orcs, they do obviously can get Burnas on their Sluggas, but I mean, they definitely have just a lot of ability to bash generators, just with units that are not necessarily specifically designed for bashing generators. And many of the other races, they don't quite have that. I mean, certainly, they don't do it as much. Usually lower base DPSs. Ranged units that do less damage. Zoukka has, though, invested in the Biosphere, so he has actually invested in one of those weapons that is very much for bashing generators. And he's going for that right here, but he's taking too much ranged DPS from the Shooters. And he will get forced off, may even go... No, he won't go down, but takes a lot of damage. I think he's just... he might just be a little too eager to return the favor of the Gen Bash, and he actually does lose his Plague Champion right there. Luckily, he is getting that full suppression off on both Shooter Boys. Slugger Boys coming in right here, but we're going to have some grenades threatening that entire Shooter Blob. So those grenades would have started killing off those last few Shooter models. Especially, they were probably about to get disrupted there by the barrage. Now, I think what we see right here is that we see... Again, we see 3 of Zoukka's units trying to bash generators, but not really doing it with the same efficiency that you would expect from the Orcs. Storm Boys coming in here. So those Storm Boys, yeah, they're going right for the Chaos Havocs. Now, Storm Boys, actually, they're not, which is actually a bad idea. And now they're actually at half health, and they're going to need to get out of there soon. So I don't think quite that well played there by Dave. But Zoukka is about to lose his Storm Boys. I mean, Zoukka is about to lose his Havocs. Now, and now Dave is about to lose the Storm Boys. And Dave, yes, he does in fact lose the Storm Boys. So Zoukka was at a bit of a disadvantage there, having lost his Plague Champion, but unfortunately poor play by Dave or Nerea to lose his Storm Boys right there. And now the Havoc is down for Zoukka. And now Zoukka about to also lose the Grenade Launcher Heretics. So wow, a lot of losses in this game. We do have a touch of Nurgle right there, forcing off the rest of Dave's units. So a lot of losses. I'm surprised to see all those losses. Now, one of the good things about Storm Boys is that if they jump a unit like Devastators or Havocs, they will actually wipe a Devastator or a Havoc squad in about 3 or 4 seconds. Basically, from the time a Storm Boy squad lands next to a Devastator or a Havoc, you have about 3 or 4 seconds to get them out of there before the entire squad is wiped. That's not a lot of time, because those Storm Boys are doing 150 DPS power melee, getting a 30% bonus from the power melee damage. Devastators and Havocs do not have that much health, and they also do not have melee resistance like Tactical Marines. I don't know if... I'm actually not sure if Chaos Space Marines have melee resistance, although they probably do. Chaos, the Plague Champion is back up, actually using the Fetid Armor offensively, just literally walks into that Shooter Blob and uses Unholy Stench from the Fetid Armor to suppress that Shooter Blob and do a lot of damage. But this Shooter Boy squad at only about 30% health, but with full models. All 6 models. So both players now in Tier 2. Zoukka definitely with the heavier losses, but with the better resources in Tier 2, decides to get an Aspiring Champion on his Chaos Space Marine squad. That Aspiring Champion has been changed a little bit in the Elite mod, the vanilla Aspiring Champion with no mark. He now does more range damage. There he walked into the Bilious Discharge that the Plague Champion had put down, and now the Plague Champion is going for yet another Generator Bash. But yet again, he's going to get forced off by those Shooter Boys. Now, these Shooter Boys from Dave, they're coming back out here not quite at full health. As we see, they're only at about like 60-70% health. But they do have all their models. They will be doing a lot of damage. It's a little surprising to see that. Now, what that means, first of all, Dave is actually ultimately going to bleed more than if he had kept his units in base and healed them a little bit more. But on the other side of things, I think the reason Dave did that was to protect his power farm. If he had kept his units in his base for too long trying to restore their health, he would have lost more generators from the Plague Champion, just bashing generators with that Biosphere. Yet another touch of Nurgle. I feel like we just saw one like a minute ago, and already Zoukka's doing another one. He has the red for it, but this War Truck is here. Orc Transport, only 350 health to start out, can be upgraded with some reinforced plating, although I think most Orc players probably don't get it. The War Truck is generally considered an extremely good unit. I'm not a dedicated enough Orc player to personally sing the praises of it, but there was definitely a time when I feel like I've heard someone like Tex say something about how it's the best transport or maybe the most cost-effective. It's certainly a very cheap unit, although it was cheaper in retail. Cost a little bit more in the Elite mod, I believe. But I guess it synergizes well with the Orc army. Basically, it allows you to deliver Sluggas. It allows you to deliver Sluggas into an engagement with full health, since one of the Sluggas are often... Oh, and Zoukka actually loses another Heretic squad. But it's often said that Sluggas are kind of bad. Some people have actually said that Sluggas are terrible in Tier 1, and then they're actually godly in Tier 2 when you combine them with a Knob and with the War Truck. So one of the issues with Sluggas is that they often get focused down on the approach, and then by the time they get in, they actually need to retreat because they just take too much damage. They're just... The individual Slugga models are just very weak like that. So the War Truck allows the Slugga boys to get into melee without taking any damage, so they actually get into melee at full health, whereas basically either allowing the War Truck to tank whatever minimal damage it will take, although now it's taking a lot of damage from these power melee bloodletters. And it will just allow those Sluggas to get into melee range without taking damage themselves. Another teleport from... That's actually... I think that might kill the War Truck. Alright, War Truck, I think, just barely going to get out of there. These bloodletters... I mean, if those were heavy melee bloodletters, that would be a dead War Truck. But those are now power melee bloodletters in the Elite mod, so they do not kill the War Truck. This might be a dead War Truck anyway from the Zinch fire. If this War Truck is not careful, it needs to not go right up there. A War Truck, wow, comes dangerously close to dying. I think starts getting some repairs, but now I think the Raptors are going to finish off the War Truck. So Zoukka takes out the War Truck without any real AV. Basically using the light AV that he had to take out that very light vehicle. The War Truck only has 350 health. That's obviously a very small amount. Can be upgraded with an extra 200 with reinforced plating to get 550. We do now have a Noxious Cloud, a global from the Plague Champion, sort of a mini nuke that you can move around, does a lot of damage, can be very good for killing squads on retreat, and very good against these weaker squads. With basically, Orc infantry squads are very squishy. The individual members are very squishy, although the knobs are usually not that squishy. They're pretty tough. So I think that was actually a wasted Noxious Cloud, to be honest. But we saw zoukka using, again, light, just doing light vehicle damage with all of these units. Power melee bloodletters, 15% of their damage will actually go through to vehicle armor. Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines, about 10% of their damage will go through. And then the Chaos Raptors, I don't remember the exact values, but we're talking one power melee model doing 15% damage, and then the regular melee models, I think only maybe 5% from them, but we're still talking, this is still going to be doing light AV because Chaos Raptors, as a melee unit, are going to have much higher base DPS than just about any ranged unit. So Bloodletters teleporting in. They teleport in, but they're already taking some damage. They're right in here with some Slugger Boys. Unfortunately, I think this is a bad teleport. Bloodletter models are already dying, and they have to get out of there. So there have been a lot of, definitely a lot of kills in this game, basically. That's going to be really bad for the Raptors now. Raptors jumping into that whole blob against use your Choppa Slugger Boys. Raptors need to retreat, or that's going to be the end of the Raptors, and that will be the end of the Raptors right there. Again, so many losses. Zoukka himself has lost like 4 squads or something. 2 Heretics. Yeah, 2 Heretics, 1 Raptor squad, as well as 1 Havoc. Dave himself, I think he's only lost the Storm Boys, so it's actually surprising to see how well Zoukka is keeping up. Zoukka has re-outfitted his Plague Champion with the Plague Fist instead of that Bile Spewer. Although, as it is, I like the way he was being so offensive with his Plague Champion, using that Unholy Stench ability, charging with the Plague Champion into a blob, then using that Unholy Stench ability to suppress the double Shooter Boys. And then that allowed like the rest of his units to just tear the Shooter Boys apart. So Zoukka maybe going to try to get a little more of a Gen Bash over here. He does an interesting Plague Champion build. Plague Fist, Fetid Armor, and Icon of Nurgle. Usually, the Plague Fist and Icon of Nurgle, you'll definitely see those two go together. Although, usually you'll see the Pestilent, Armor of Pestilence instead of the rest of these. But some interesting things can happen right here. There's... Wow, so he's actually using Pestilent Strike as well as Fetid Armor, and now he has a Noxious Cloud in the retreat path of these units, but he is also going to lose his Plague Champion. Dave right there, though, did use, I think he did use a Call to Boys to reinforce the Shooter Boys right there. So some good ideas by Zoukka, but some better ideas by Dave. And Dave definitely comes out on the top of that engagement. And Zoukka now about to lose Bloodletters as well. 2 models. Alright, I think you will get that squad of Bloodletters out of there. 1 model left with 200-something health. So I think Zoukka had some great ideas. He got in with his Plague Champion. He used both Pestilence Strike and Unholy Stench, and that was about to absolutely murder the Slugger Boys and the Shooter Boys that were right by that Warboss. But since those units were by the Warboss used Call to Boys, or Dave used Call to Boys, reinforced all those units, so suddenly Zoukka wasn't threatening those units as much as he thought he was. Now, get Call to Boys, people have definitely complained about that ability being OP. It definitely acted as a get out of jail free card right there, because if he hadn't used Call to Boys, I think Dave would have been pretty screwed. I think he would have lost at least 1 Shooter Boy squad as well as his Sluggers. They took a lot of damage from the Unholy Stench and the Pestilence Strike and the Icon of Nurgle, so that's another part of Zoukka's combination right there. And there were also there was a Noxious Cloud in their retreat path. So I actually think it was a fantastic combination by Zoukka right there. It could have been a very big play, but a very good response from Dave to nullify that and keep him in the game, keep himself in the game, because he would be at a huge disadvantage there if what Zoukka was trying to do had actually been pulled off. All right, right there, Slugger Boys do retreat. They do have their knob, which is going to make them. They certainly should at least be able to stand up to the Heretics, I think. Certainly with Warboss buffs, they would be able to. But the Plague Champion was in there, and Zoukka was probably going to use that suppression to bring the Plague Champion in, use And wow, so again, Dave pretty much just retreating his units. Look at this weird boy getting out of there, walking so fast. So I think Dave is a very good player. He goes by Nerea. One of the best Tyranid players around. Apparently also plays the Warboss and is pretty good with that too. But basically I see that he's actually respecting what the Plague Champion is capable of. And he's not sticking around and suffering losses unnecessarily. So zoukka's a player who I've only been seeing him fairly recently. I've been seeing him in some 1v1 matches, both that I've cast, that Indrid has cast. He's doing pretty well, although in most of the 1v1 videos that he gets cast in, he loses. But, I mean, he seems to be turning out to be a pretty good player. I've also played both with him and against him in team games. And although he's definitely being featured in games where he's in 1v1 games where he's losing. In fact, I don't think he's been in a single 1v1 cast where he's won. But I mean, the thing is, he's playing against very good players. So he's actually seeming to me like turning out to be a pretty good player. Now the Plague Champion is in here again and does wipe one of those Shooter Boy squads, doing exactly the stuff that zoukka is trying to do. The combination of that Icon of Nurgle and the Unholy Stench is actually proving to be very, very powerful. I don't even know what zoukka mains, but his Plague Champion, I'm liking some of the things out of his Plague Champion. He seems to be, I mean, I'm seeing things out of him with his Plague Champion that I feel like I'm not seeing out of other people who I've seen play the Plague Champion. Although, I don't know of anyone who I really think of as a Plague Champion main. Like, who I think of like, oh yeah, he's a Plague Champion player. Like, the Plague Champion seems to be more like a hero that, like, players will occasionally play. And, I mean, well, actually, if I can think of one Plague Champion player, it's actually Indrid. But I guess, at least my opinion personally on the Plague Champion is that I don't like him that much. I find him to be certainly less interesting than the Sorcerer. And I find both of the other Chaos Heroes a lot less interesting than the Sorcerer, the Chaos Lord, and the Plague Champion. I don't really like the Plague Champion that much. I don't know if I would say he's... I don't think the Chaos Lord is that interesting either. But I definitely play the Chaos Lord more than the Plague Champion. I'm better with the Chaos Lord than the Plague Champion. In part just because I think he might just be easier to play. I definitely think the Chaos Lord is the easiest Chaos hero to play. And the Plague Champion is also definitely my worst Chaos hero. In part because I think he's, in some ways, like, very much opposed to the Sorcerer. Like, I think a lot of the Plague Champion's strengths are weaknesses of the Sorcerer, and a lot of the Plague Champion's weaknesses are strengths of the Sorcerer. Almost like they're opposite. And there's also something about, like, opposing Chaos Gods. I think, actually, the opposing god of Nurgle is actually Slaanesh. Not sure about that. You can tell me in the comments. But Dave now getting a Gen Bash off. Some Shooter Boy models, though, dying from these Bloodletters. Zoukka getting a second squad of Bloodletters. Bloodletter spam. Not too bad of a strategy, to be honest. I've definitely seen it do some nasty things. In general, I think having multiple jump units is a strategy that probably still, as much as I feel like I haven't seen it that much, is something that's probably very good and probably has a lot of untapped potential. Havoc Squad right there just dies from zoukka, unfortunately. So zoukka, it seems like zoukka's unit preservation could be a little bit better, as well as I think there was a time here before when I saw some of his Bloodletters just going straight into that base right there for some unknown reason. And well, not unknown reason, he's just losing track of it. You know, I'm saying these things. These are criticisms of zoukka's play, but at the same time, saying very much that he's actually seeming like a pretty solid player lately, having some pretty good games against good players. This is a very long game, and so far it's also been even on VPs. Zoukka seems to be losing more units, and overextending his Bloodletters again, but still managing to keep this game. And right now we do have yet another. Touch of Nurgle needs to Doom Blast again to knock over those those knobs. Maybe Doom Blast was on cooldown right there. But Touch of Nurgle is definitely an answer to knobs. You basically just keep the knobs disrupted while a unit like your Tzeentch Space Marines just lays into the knobs. Unfortunately, that could be a dead Heretic squad. No, I think this Aspiring Champion, will he get out of there? Unfortunately, these flames from the Sluggo Boys do jack. And that one champion does get out of there. Zoukka now is pretty much back in his base. He does actually have a 2-cap, and he does have a slight lead, 192 to 182. Dave himself, it's strange. He's got the same number of units. I feel like he hasn't lost as many as Zoukka. I know he lost a Shooter Boy squad as well as a Storm Boy squad. Might just be bleeding more, although, I mean, he does have a clear tech advantage. He's in Tier 3, but Zoukka, being the Chaos player, can afford to stay in Tier 2, even against knobs. He can control the knobs with Touch of Nurgle, and then do his damage against the knobs with the Bloodletters, as well as the Tzeentch Space Marines. But the Heretics do need to stay in against the knobs and just keep them down on the ground. And the knobs actually taking huge losses at 2 models, but now we're rocks. Oh my god! Now it actually looks like a completely wasted rocks. So Zoukka just pushes forward and suffers almost nothing from those rocks. And Dave is actually going to might actually lose his Warboss out of those rocks. Yes. So a rocks that could have been absolutely devastating for Zoukka. He had pretty much his entire army there. If Zoukka did not react well enough to those rocks, he could have lost his entire army right then and there, and that could have been a GG. Instead, he moves most of his units forward, keeps his Tzeentch Space Marines back, and actually loses almost nothing from the rocks. On the other hand, Dave lost his Warboss, and that's the main thing that happened out of the rocks. Lost his Warboss and 500 red. Dave is about to get a 2-cap, though, so that he'll get the 2-cap while... Yeah, I don't know while what. While. I just lost track of my transition. So Zoukka still with enough red to have another Touch of Nurgle ready. It's probably still on cooldown. And he does... I mean, Zoukka... Again, Chaos, if there's any race that can stay in Tier 2 and continue to fight against the Tier 3 army, it's Chaos. Right now, they actually have the knobs pretty well countered. First of all, there's the Plague Champion himself. He is down on the ground, but Zoukka should be able to buy him back reasonably soon. Just wait for the price of the Plague Champion to go back down to 250 requisition, buy him back, and that's a knob counter. The Touch of Nurgle Heretics are a knob counter. Now those are for controlling and disrupting the knobs. Then these double Bloodletters, as well as the Tzeentch Space Marines, are the units that will actually be doing damage to the knobs. So knobs pretty well countered. If anything, the knobs may have not been a great choice by Dave. I mean, certainly, I think part of the reason he got knobs, and one of the reasons why it does make sense, is that the knobs synergize well with the Warboss because of the globals. Knobs are already stupidly good in a lot of ways, and when you put Use Your Choppas or Ard Boys on it, it's ridiculous. But part of me thinks that a Battle Wagon or a Looted Tank would have been better against Zoukka's current composition, because he does now have this Chaos Dreadnought, but the Chaos Dreadnought is the Mark of Khorne now. Zoukka got the Mark of Khorne, probably, well, he got that in part as a response to the knobs. But basically, Zoukka with his build, was definitely a lot more equipped to deal with knobs than with a Battle Wagon or a Looted Tank. So I think that those could have been better choices. The knobs can definitely still work, especially with Warboss buffs, and especially just because they're knobs. Again, Zoukka himself staying in Tier 2 does finally get that Plague Champion back for 250 requisition. Zoukka taking the middle VP back. So it's weird. Better unit preservation by Dave, and yet he has fewer units. Weird Boy level 4. Look at the health on that Weird Boy. 1551. Warboss level 6. And he's also got a ludicrous amount of health. With that heavy armor, giving him an extra 900. Almost 2200 health. So... I mean, Zoukka's been doing well. He's actually been at had the advantage for, I think, at least the past 5 minutes, if not longer. But Dave's army is starting to scare me. Specifically, his Warboss is starting to scare me. The boss pole is giving his units even more health. And now this, we need Blood Rage now from that Dreadnought. And we need more stuff. Unfortunately, it might have been a premature retreat on a lot of Zoukka's units, because now that's going to leave his Dreadnought as well as his... It's going to leave his Dreadnought unsupported. He does use Pestilence Strike there, but I don't think it hits all of the knobs. And I mean, ultimately, they will get unstunned. And now there is that looted tank. That's going to put Dave at a bit of an advantage. Zoukka does not really have a good counter for that. He does have a new Havoc squad, but it does not have Las Cannon yet. So Zoukka's actually chasing down the looted tank with the Chaos Dreadnought, and with that extra speed actually from Blood Rage, that can actually help a little bit, but I'm still concerned this could be a dead Chaos Dreadnought. Now, Zoukka is not playing as the Sorcerer, so he will not be able to warp his Chaos Dreadnought out of there. And this, unfortunately, is going to be the end for one of these units. And part of me thinks he should push in with the Chaos Dreadnought, take the risk, and possibly take out that looted tank. Instead, he's going for the Weird Boy. If he can get... Oh, no, that's going to be it. I was going to say, if he can get Blood Rage to go one more time, he could possibly take out that Weird Boy, but I don't think he's going to get it. Warboss ends up taking out the Dreadnought with that Power Claw, and suddenly, although Zoukka has a lot of VPs, 169 to 20. Dave needs to get that VP cap. He needs to stop chasing with these knobs and cap this VP. He wanted the Plague Champion. Well, I mean, I guess on the other side of things, he could... Well, no, I don't think you should even press forward with the knobs when they're actually close to dying. He definitely should have gotten that VP. He's still in the game. Just barely gets the 1-to-1 with the Shooter Boys over here. 3 VPs left for Dave, but he did come out on top a bit of those engagements. In fact, I was going to say I thought he lost a unit, but I don't think he lost any units out of that engagement, while Zoukka lost a few. He lost his Dreadnought, lost 1 Bloodletter squad as well. Zoukka now getting a new Dreadnought. Oh, that new Dreadnought's not going to be a good idea, especially now with Dave getting a second looted tank. At this point, it looks like Dave maybe... He's actually has the clarity of... Or, I don't know, just the presence of mind, clarity of thought to really see what Zoukka's build is and go for the right counters. Because we're now getting a double looted tanks. Those will hard counter this Chaos Dreadnought. Certainly it will hard counter a vanilla Dreadnought, it will hard counter a Mark of Corn Dreadnought, and it will still soft counter a Mark of Tzeentch Dreadnought. Since those looted tanks will be able to kite, they can just drive out of the way if they start taking too much damage, and they can pursue the Dreadnought if it starts getting very low in health. But they can't just let the Plague Champion shoot them. And wow, this looted tank actually almost dead. I think getting chased down a bit. I think Zoukka might actually just press forward with his Chaos Dreadnought. He can kill this looted tank. Oh, but he actually backs off. Oh, he actually could have killed that looted tank if he had pressed forward. I guess he didn't really want to take the risk, not knowing exactly what was in here. Actually going for melee. And wow, Dave is actually going to lose this looted tank. So, I mean, if anything, I think that's a micro fail on Dave's part. That I really don't think there's any reason for that looted tank to die. a defensive Pestilence Strike to stun those knobs, but now this Dreadnought needs to get out of there. Oh, there's going to be a dead Dreadnought now and a dead Plague Champion. So zoukka definitely made a good choice with that defensive Pestilence Strike to stop those knobs from killing his Dreadnought. But as it is, he lost his Plague Champion in the process. He also cannot allow this Warboss. Oh, but he actually takes out the Warboss. I wasn't expecting that. But I don't know. It's actually not looking good for zoukka. Zoukka, I think, just desperately trying to get a cap off so he can win the game. But I mean, I think he's having trouble sustaining his army now. Chaos Dreadnought only at 189 health. Pretty much can't fight any unit that can threaten to kill it. And most of the Orc units can threaten to kill it, except for maybe the Shooter Boys. Even the Slugger Boys at level 4 can threaten to kill a Dreadnought with 189 health left. Knobs certainly will have no problem killing that Chaos Dreadnought. Looted Tank. Oh no! zoukka definitely not doing the right thing now. That Looted Tank just needs to drive up and pursue. And it doesn't, though. Could have been a dead Chaos Dreadnought right there. So again, we have zoukka completely staying in tier 2. Unfortunately, he actually hasn't been using his globals at this point. And he should. I mean, as long as he has the red, especially at this point, zoukka's running out of things, period. He does put a new Heretic Squad on the field so that he can repair his Dreadnought, but this Looted Tank is moving in, and somehow that Looted Tank moved in and did not kill the Dreadnought. It did not even take a shot at the Dreadnought with its cannon. Knobs here. Uh-oh, not good. We do have another touch of Nurgle. Again, this Looted Tank just needs to target the Chaos Dreadnought, and it is done. Alright, one more hit on that Dreadnought. That will be it for that Dreadnought, I think. 23 health, dead Dreadnought. And I mean, a touch of Nurgle kept the knobs at bay, but ultimately, this is not looking good for zoukka. Lost his Dreadnought, pretty much lost all of his counters to the tanks, and he's got 2 tanks to deal with right now. He does decide to start using his globals again, and I mean those globals could have been used to do things like take out the remaining shooter squads or slugger squads, and zoukka now just desperately going for a cap. Can he get it off? He just might get it off. Oh my god, zoukka's gonna win the game on that. Holy god. So I think Dave just wiped his own Slugger Boy squad with that big shot, hoping to throw these Bloodletters off. And it didn't even work. And zoukka won. So congratulations to zoukka. Not only did he win a game against an established, very good player, but I think that's also going to be possibly the first 1v1 game of him actually winning. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.